The rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the black umbrellas that bobbed like mourners' heads outside St. Mary's Church. Ellie Harper stood at the edge of the crowd, her hands trembling as she clutched the program. Jacob Michael Harper, beloved son and husband, 1989 to 2024. The ink smudged under her thumb, blurring his name. She couldn't bring herself to look at the casket, its polished oak glistening in the downpour. 2 days ago, she'd been planning their anniversary dinner. Now, she was a widow at 32. Ellie, honey, you okay? Lila's voice cut through the haze, soft but insistent. Her best friend stood beside her, a sturdy figure in a navy coat, her short brown hair plastered to her forehead from the rain. Ellie nodded, though it was a lie. I can't believe he's gone. Lila squeezed her arm. You don't have to go through this alone. I'm here. The service ended with a hymn Ellie barely heard, and the crowd shuffled toward the parking lot. She was about to follow when a sharp voice sliced through the murmur. You've got some nerve showing your face here. Ellie turned, her stomach dropping. Margaret Langston stood under a massive black umbrella held by her driver, her silver hair pulled tight in a bun, her lips a thin, crimson slash. Jake's mother had always been cold to Ellie, but the venom in her eyes now was something new. Margaret, Ellie started, but the older woman cut her off. Don't you Margaret me, she snapped, stepping closer. Heads turned, whispers rippling through the mourners. You think I don't know what you've been up to? Slinking around my son, worming your way into his life, into our money. Ellie blinked, the words hitting like a slap. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Margaret hissed. Jake told me everything before he died. How you twisted his head, made him change things. You're nothing but a gold-digging little thief. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and absurd. Ellie's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She felt Lila stiffen beside her, ready to jump in, but before she could, Margaret turned to the crowd. She stole from us. Margaret's voice rose, theatrical and shrill. From my family. After everything we gave her. Murmurs grew louder. Ellie's cheeks burned, her grief twisting into something sharper, anger, confusion. That's not true, she managed, her voice shaking. I love Jake. I'd never. Save it, Margaret spat, then spun on her heel, her driver hustling to keep the umbrella over her as she stormed off. The crowd parted for her like she was royalty, leaving Ellie rooted to the spot, rain soaking through her coat. Lila grabbed her elbow. What the hell was that? I don't know, Ellie whispered, her mind reeling. She's lost it. She has to be. But as they drove away from the church, Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The next morning, Ellie sat at her kitchen table, a mug of cold coffee in her hands. The house felt too big without Jake, the creak of the hardwood, the hum of the fridge, all reminders of his absence. She barely slept, Margaret's words looping in her head. Thief. It made no sense. Jake had been a software engineer, not some heir to a fortune. They'd lived comfortably, sure, but Margaret acted like Ellie had robbed a vault. A knock at the door jolted her. She opened it to find a man in a gray suit, his badge glinting under the porch light. Mrs. Harper? Detective Sam Rivera. Mind if I come in? Ellie's stomach twisted. Sure. What's this about? He stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room before settling on her. We got a call from Margaret Langston. She's claiming you stole some valuables from her home. Jewelry, documents, that sort of thing. Says it happened after your husband's death. Ellie stared at him, dumbfounded. That's insane. I haven't even been to her house since Jake died. Rivera nodded, scribbling in a notepad. She's got some evidence, receipts, photos of items she says you took. I'm just here to get your side. My side. Ellie's voice rose. My side is that she's lying. I don't know what she's playing at, but I didn't take anything. He studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. All right, we'll look into it. Just don't leave town, okay? After he left, Ellie called Lila, her hands shaking as she recounted the visit. She's framing me, she said. Why would she do this? Lila's voice crackled through the phone, calm but firm. Because she's a control freak who can't stand losing Jake, or whatever she thinks you've taken from her. I'm coming over. We're figuring this out. By noon, Lila was sprawled on Ellie's couch, a laptop balanced on her knees. As a private investigator, she had a knack for digging up dirt, and she wasn't wasting time. Margaret's got money troubles, she said, scrolling through a financial report she'd pulled from who knows where. Big ones. Jake's death might have screwed up her plans. Ellie frowned. Jake never said anything about that. Doesn't mean it's not true, Lila replied. And get this, there's a will reading tomorrow. Margaret's been fighting to delay it. Bet you anything she's scared of what's in it. Ellie's pulse quickened. You think Jake left me something she doesn't want me to have? Lila grinned. Only one way to find out. Ellie barely slept that night, her mind a tangle of grief and suspicion. The house creaked around her, each sound a reminder of Jake's absence. By morning, her eyes were gritty, her nerves frayed, but she forced herself to shower and dress. Black slacks, a gray sweater, something somber for the will reading. Lila arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, her pickup truck rattling into the driveway. "You look like hell," Lila said, handing Ellie a coffee from the gas station down the road. "Thanks," Ellie muttered, taking a sip. It was lukewarm and bitter, but it steadied her hands. "I keep thinking about what you said. If Jake left me something big, why didn't he tell me?" Lila shrugged, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Maybe he didn't get the chance. Car accidents don't exactly come with warning labels. The word stung, but Ellie nodded. She grabbed her purse, and they drove to the lawyer's office downtown, a sleek glass building that felt out of place in their small coastal town. The receptionist ushered them into a conference room where Margaret already sat, perched like a queen on a leather chair. Her navy blazer was pristine, her expression icy. Beside her was a man Ellie didn't recognize, mid-50s, balding, with a nervous tick in his jaw. Margaret's lawyer, she assumed. "Ellie," Margaret said, her voice dripping with disdain. "I see you brought your little guard dog." Lila smirked, unfazed. "Good to see you too, Maggie." "It's Margaret," she snapped, but before she could say more, the door opened again. A woman in a sharp blazer entered, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrea Kessler, Jake's attorney. Let's get started." She set a folder on the table and opened it with a practiced flick, oblivious to the tension crackling in the room. Ellie's stomach churned as Andrea began reading. The legalese washed over her, trusts, assets, beneficiaries, until the words sharpened into something real. "To my wife, Eleanor Harper," Andrea read. "I leave the entirety of my estate, including all financial accounts, properties, and personal effects, to be distributed at her discretion. This includes the primary residence at 142 Ocean Drive, the cabin in Mendocino, and all funds held in my name, totaling approximately $3 million. Ellie's breath caught. $3 million. Jake had never mentioned anything like that. They'd lived modestly. Takeout dinners, a 10-year-old Toyota, a mortgage they'd chipped away at together. Where had this money come from? Margaret's chair scraped back, the sound jarring. "This is preposterous," she said, her voice trembling with fury. "That money belongs to my family. He can't just—" "Mrs. Langston," Andrea interrupted, calm but firm. "This was signed and notarized 6 months ago. Jake was of sound mind. It's legally binding." "Legally binding?" Margaret's laugh was brittle. "She manipulated him. She's a nurse. She probably drugged him, coerced him into this nonsense." Ellie's face burned. "That's a lie," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I didn't even know about this." "Oh, please," Margaret sneered. "You expect us to believe that? You've been scheming since the day you met him." Lila leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Funny how you're the one who seems desperate here, Margaret. What's the matter, running out of cash to keep up that mansion?" Margaret's lawyer coughed, adjusting his tie. "Let's keep this civil, shall we?" Andrea raised a hand. "There's more." She flipped a page. Jake also left a personal note. "To my mother, Margaret Langston, I leave my forgiveness for the past. I hope you find peace." The room went silent. Margaret's face paled, her lips parting as if to speak, but nothing came out. Forgiveness for the past? What did that mean? Ellie glanced at Lila, who gave a subtle nod. "We'll figure it out later." "That's all," Andrea said, closing the folder. "Mrs. Harper, I'll need you to sign some paperwork to begin the transfer. Mrs. Langston, if you wish to contest this, you'll need to file with the court." Margaret stood, her movements jerky. "Oh, I will," she said, glaring at Ellie. "This isn't over." She swept out, her lawyer scrambling to follow. Ellie exhaled, her hands trembling. $3 million, she whispered. "How did I not know?" Lila squeezed her shoulder. "We'll dig into it. But first, let's get you out of here." Back at the house, Ellie paced the living room while Lila set up her laptop on the coffee table. "Jake's accounts," Lila said, tapping away. "I've got a friend who can pull some strings, off the record, of course. If there's $3 million floating around, it didn't come from nowhere." Ellie nodded, her mind racing. "He worked for that tech startup, right? Maybe a bonus or stock options." "Maybe," Lila said, unconvinced. "But startups don't usually pay out like that, unless they hit it big." "What was the name again?" "Nextwave Solutions," Ellie said. "They did cybersecurity stuff. He was lead developer." Lila typed, then frowned. "Huh. Nextwave got bought out last year by some big conglomerate. Jake's stock could have spiked. I'll need more time to trace it." Before Ellie could respond, the doorbell rang. She opened it to find Detective Rivera on her porch, his coat damp from a fresh drizzle. "Mrs. Harper," he said, tipping his head. "Got a minute?" Ellie's stomach sank. "What now?" He stepped inside, wiping his shoes on the mat. "Margaret Langston filed a formal complaint. Says you broke into her house last night and took a necklace, some family heirloom worth 50 grand. She's got security footage." "That's impossible," Ellie said, her voice rising. "I was here all night." Rivera's eyes flicked to Lila, then back to Ellie. "She's pushing hard. Claims the footage shows someone who looks like you. I need to see it myself, but I thought I'd give you a heads up." Lila stood, crossing her arms. She's setting her up, detective. You know that, right? Maybe, Rivera said, his tone neutral. But I've got to follow the evidence. Mrs. Harper, can you account for your whereabouts between 10 p.m. and midnight? I was asleep, Ellie said, frustration bubbling up. Alone. No witnesses. He nodded, jotting it down. All right. Sit tight. I'll be in touch. As he left, Ellie turned to Lila, her hands clenched. She's framing me. She's actually doing it. Lila's jaw tightened. Then we fight back. I'll get that footage. If it's fake, I'll prove it. Ellie sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. $3 million, a dead husband, and a mother-in-law out for blood. What had Jake dragged her into? Ellie's kitchen felt like a war room by late afternoon. Lila had dragged in a folding table from her truck, now cluttered with her laptop, a tangle of cables, and a half-empty bag of pretzels. The air smelled of burnt coffee, Ellie's third pot of the day, and rain tapped a steady rhythm against the windows. She paced behind Lila, her sneakers squeaking on the tile. Anything yet? Ellie asked, her voice tight. Lila didn't look up, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Patience. Elle hacking into Margaret's security system isn't exactly a 5-minute job. She's got decent encryption, probably courtesy of Jake's tech know-how. Ellie stopped, her hands twisting together. You think he set it up for her? Wouldn't surprise me, Lila said. He was the family's golden boy, right? Probably did all their tech stuff before you two tied the knot. She paused, smirking. Gotcha. The screen flickered, and a grainy black and white feed appeared. Margaret's sprawling estate, captured by a camera perched above the front porch. The timestamp read 10:47 p.m. the previous night. A figure emerged from the shadows, hooded and slight, moving toward the door with a key in hand. Ellie leaned closer, her breath catching. That's supposed to be me? Lila squinted. Same height, maybe. Hard to tell with the hood. Watch this. She fast-forwarded. The figure slipped inside, re-emerging 10 minutes later with a small box tucked under their arm. That's the necklace, I'm guessing. It's not me, Ellie said, her voice rising. I don't have a key to her house. I've never had one. Lila nodded, rewinding the footage. Look at the walk. You've got that nurse shuffle, quick, efficient. This person's all jerky, like they're nervous. And the key. Margaret must have given it to them. Ellie's mind raced. So she hired someone to pretend to be me? Looks like it, Lila said, cracking her knuckles. Sloppy, though. She didn't count on me getting this feed. I'll cross-check it with traffic cams near your place, prove you didn't leave last night. A knock at the door made them both jump. Ellie opened it to find Detective Rivera, his trench coat dripping onto her welcome mat. Evening, he said, his eyes flicking past her to Lila's setup. Mind if I come in again? Ellie stepped aside, her stomach nodding. What's this about now? Rivera pulled a tablet from his bag, swiping it on. Margaret sent me the footage. Thought you'd want to see it before I ask more questions. He tapped play, and the same grainy video flickered to life. Hooded figure, key box, all of it. That's not me, Ellie said immediately, her voice firm. I was here all night. Rivera raised an eyebrow. Can anyone confirm that? No, Ellie admitted. But I didn't do it. She's framing me, trying to discredit me after the will reading. He studied her, then glanced at Lila. What's your friend out there? Lila spun her laptop around. Same footage, pulled straight from Margaret's system. I'm working on proving Ellie didn't leave this house. Give me a couple hours, and I'll have traffic cam data to back it up. Rivera's lips twitched, almost a smile. You're a PI, right? Carter. That's me, Lila said, leaning back. And I'm telling you, this is a setup. Look at the timestamp. 10:47 p.m. Ellie's car would have had to pass the intersection on Maple to get to Margaret's. Check the cams yourself. He nodded slowly. I will. But here's the thing. Margaret's pushing for an arrest. Says the necklace was her mother's, priceless to her. She's got a witness, too. Ellie's heart sank. A witness? Her gardener, Rivera said, flipping a page in his notepad. Claims he saw you lurking around the property last week, scoping it out. That's a lie. Ellie snapped. I haven't been near her place in months. Rivera held up a hand. I'm not saying I buy it. Just telling you what's on the table. If you've got evidence, like your friend's working on, get it to me fast. I don't like being played, and this stinks like a setup to me, too. After he left, Ellie sank into a chair, her head in her hands. A gardener? She's making this up as she goes. Lila snorted. Or paying him off. Margaret's desperate. $3 million slipping through her fingers? She'd do worse than this. Ellie looked up, her jaw tightening. We need more than traffic cams. We need to know why she's so obsessed with that money. Lila grinned, pulling a USB drive from her bag. Already on it. I snagged some files from her system while I was in there. Financials, emails, the works. Let's see what she's hiding. They spent the next hour digging through the data. Margaret's bank statements showed a grim picture. Overdrawn accounts, maxed out credit lines, and a mortgage payment on the mansion 3 months overdue. An email from her lawyer stood out. If Jake's estate goes to Ellie, we'll need to liquidate assets to cover your debts. Contest the will ASAP. She's broke, Ellie said, stunned. That's why she's doing this. Yep, Lila said, scrolling further. Oh, this is gold. Look at this. She opened a scanned letter dated 2 years back, from Jake to Margaret. The handwriting was unmistakably his, tight and slanted. Mom, I'm done covering for you. The loan stopped now. I won't let you drag me and Ellie into your mess. Fix it yourself. Ellie's throat tightened. He was bailing her out. Sounds like it, Lila said. And when he stopped, she got desperate. Bet she thought his death would fix her problems, until you got everything. Before Ellie could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your garage. You're not as smart as you think. Ellie's blood ran cold. She grabbed a flashlight and bolted outside, Lila on her heels. The garage door creaked open, revealing her Toyota, and a small wooden box on the passenger seat, its lid ajar. Inside gleamed a pearl necklace, old and ornate. Son of a... Lila started, but Ellie cut her off. She planted it, Ellie said, her voice shaking with rage. She's trying to make it look like I took it. Lila pulled out her phone, snapping photos. This is her insane move, Elle. But she just screwed herself. We've got her now. The garage felt colder than it should have, the air thick with the tang of gasoline and damp concrete. Ellie stood frozen, staring at the pearl necklace glinting in its box on her car's passenger seat. Her flashlight beam trembled, casting jagged shadows across the walls. Lila's camera clicked behind her, documenting every angle of Margaret's latest stunt. We need to call Rivera, Ellie said, her voice barely above a whisper. This proves she's setting me up. Lila nodded, pocketing her phone. Already texting him. But we've got to be smart. Move this somewhere safe before she claims you're hiding evidence. Ellie grabbed a rag from a shelf, using it to lift the box without touching it directly. Upstairs, she said. In the lockbox under the bed. They hurried inside, the necklace stashed in a fireproof safe Jake had insisted on buying years ago. Ironic, now, that it held proof of his mother's betrayal. Ellie's hands shook as she locked it, the click echoing in the quiet bedroom. She sank onto the mattress, her mind spinning. Why would Jake keep all this from me? She asked, more to herself than Lila. The money, his mom's debts. He never said a word. Lila perched on the dresser, arms crossed. Maybe he didn't want you tangled up in it. Guy like Jake, protective, right? Probably thought he could handle her himself. Ellie's chest tightened. Protective. That was Jake to a fault. Always shielding her from the messy parts of his life. She'd loved that about him, but now it felt like a wall between them, even in death. I need to know what he was thinking, she said. There's got to be something. Letters, notes, something he left behind. Lila tilted her head. You check his stuff yet? Desk, closet, anywhere he stashed personal crap. Not really, Ellie admitted. After the accident, I couldn't. I just boxed up his clothes and left the rest. Then let's start there, Lila said, hopping down. If he was hiding anything, it's still here. They split up, Lila tackling the office downstairs, Ellie the bedroom closet. She dragged out a cardboard box labeled Jake's junk in her own shaky handwriting. Its contents a jumble of old chargers, dog-eared paperbacks, and a battered leather jacket he'd worn on their first date. Her throat ached as she sifted through it, memories clawing at her. Then her fingers brushed something hard beneath a stack of receipts, a slim, black notebook, its cover worn smooth. Ellie's pulse quickened. She opened it, recognizing Jake's tight scrawl instantly. The first page was dated a year ago, the ink faded but legible. October 12th, 2023. Mom called again, begging for another loan. Said the bank's foreclosing if I don't help. I told her no. Ellie deserves better than bailing out her mess. She screamed at me, said I'd regret it. I already do. Ellie's breath hitched. She flipped ahead, the entries growing sporadic but darker. January 8th, 2024. Found out Mom's been siphoning money from the trust Dad left me. Explains why next way's payout was bigger than I expected. She'd been skimming for years. Confronted her. She denied it, but I've got proof. Lawyers drafting a new will tomorrow. March 15th, 2024. She's losing it. Showed up at the house, yelling about family loyalty. Ellie was at work, thank God. I'm locking this journal in the garage, don't want her finding it if Mom gets desperate. Ellie's hands trembled, the notebook heavy in her lap. The garage. She bolted downstairs, nearly tripping over Lila, who was knee-deep in a filing cabinet. Found something? Lila asked, looking up. His journal, Ellie said, holding it up. He hid it in the garage, I think there's more. They raced back to the garage, Ellie scanning the shelves. Jake had mentioned locking it. Did he mean the toolbox? She yanked open the red metal chest, its drawers clanking. Tucked beneath a layer of socket wrenches was a small key taped to the bottom, and beside it, a folded envelope. Her name was scrawled across it in Jake's hand. Oh my God, Ellie whispered, tearing it open. Inside was a single sheet, dated 2 weeks before his death. Ellie, if you're reading this, something's gone wrong. I changed the will. Everything's yours, not Mom's. She's broke, and she's dangerous when she's cornered. The trust papers are with Kessler. There's a safety deposit box at First Coastal Bank, keys in my toolbox. It's got evidence, recordings, bank statements. Use it if she comes after you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I love you. Tears blurred Ellie's vision, but she handed the letter to Lila, who read it in silence. Holy shit, Lila said finally. He knew she'd pull something. Ellie wiped her eyes, grabbing the key. We need to get to that bank. Before they could move, headlights flashed through the garage window. A car door slammed, and footsteps crunched on the gravel. Ellie peeked out, Detective Rivera, his face grim under the porch light. He's back, she said, shoving the journal and letter into her pocket. Act normal. Rivera knocked, and Ellie let him in, her heart pounding. Got news, he said, shaking rain off his coat. Traffic cams show your car didn't move last night, backs your story. But Margaret's doubling down. Says the necklace in your garage is proof you've been hoarding stolen goods. It's planted, Ellie said, her voice steady despite the panic clawing at her. She's lying. Rivera nodded. Figured as much. Found something else. Her gardener's got a rap sheet. Petty theft, fraud. Looks like a hired gun. I'm bringing him in for questioning. Relief flooded Ellie, but it was short-lived. What about the necklace? Need to see it, he said. If it's here, I'll take it into evidence, chain of custody and all. Lila led him upstairs, retrieving the lockbox. Rivera examined the necklace, his brow furrowing. Matches her description. I'll log it, but this doesn't look good for her if it's a plant. As he left with the box, Ellie turned to Lila. The bank. Tomorrow. Whatever's in that safety deposit box, it's our way out. Lila grinned. And Margaret's way down. Ellie clutched the key, Jake's words echoing in her mind. Dangerous when cornered. She'd underestimated her mother-in-law before. Not anymore. The morning dawned gray and heavy, the sky a bruise over the coast. Ellie barely slept, Jake's journal burning a hole in her thoughts. She reread his letter a dozen times, tracing the loops of his handwriting until they blurred into memory. By 8 a.m., she and Lila were in the truck, the key to the safety deposit box clutched in Ellie's fist as they drove to First Coastal Bank. You okay? Lila asked, glancing over from the driver's seat. The engine rumbled, a steady counterpoint to the nervous tap of Ellie's foot. No, Ellie said, her voice raw. But I will be once we get whatever's in that box. Lila nodded, turning onto Main Street. Jake left you a weapon here. We're gonna use it. The bank was a squat brick building, its lobby sterile and quiet save for the hum of fluorescent lights. Ellie approached the teller, a young woman with a tight ponytail, and slid the key across the counter. Safety deposit box 214, she said. It's under Jacob Harper's name. I'm his wife, widow, I mean. The teller checked her ID, then led them to a vaulted room lined with metal boxes. She inserted her master key alongside Ellie's, and the lock clicked open. Take your time, she said, leaving them alone. Ellie pulled out a steel container, her hands trembling as she set it on the table. Lila hovered close, her usual bravado softened by curiosity. The lid creaked open, revealing a stack of documents, a USB drive, and a small digital recorder, old school, with a scratched plastic casing. Holy jackpot, Lila muttered, grabbing the recorder. She pressed play, and Jake's voice crackled to life, low and tense. March 20th, 2024. This is Jake Harper. If you're hearing this, Mom's probably gone off the deep end. I recorded her last week, caught her admitting she forged Dad's signature to drain the trust. It's all on here, plus bank records on the USB. Ellie, if she comes after you, give this to the cops. I'm sorry I kept it quiet. I thought I could fix it. The recording cut off, leaving silence thick as fog. Ellie's eyes stung, but she blinked it back, reaching for the documents. Printouts of wire transfers, forged signatures, and a ledger showing millions siphoned from a trust labeled Langston Family Estate. The USB held digital copies, time-stamped and irrefutable. She stole from him, Ellie said, her voice shaking with anger. From his dad, from us. And he knew. Lila whistled, flipping through the pages. This is enough to bury her, fraud, forgery, maybe even jail time. No wonder she's freaking out. Ellie pocketed the recorder and USB, stacking the papers. We take this to Rivera. She's done. They were halfway to the truck when Ellie's phone buzzed. A call from an unknown number. She answered, cautious. Hello. You think you're clever, don't you? Margaret's voice was a hiss, sharp enough to cut glass. Digging through my son's things, turning him against me even after he's gone. Ellie's grip tightened. I know what you did, Margaret. The trust, the forgeries. Jake left proof. It's over. A pause, then a cold laugh. Proof? You mean that little box you just picked up? Enjoy while it lasts. You're not the only one with tricks. The line went dead. Ellie stared at the phone, dread pooling in her gut. She knows we were at the bank. Lila's eyes narrowed. How? She tailing us. Ellie scanned the parking lot, empty except for a delivery van idling across the street. Maybe. Or she's got someone watching. They drove straight to the police station, the evidence tucked in Lila's bag. Detective Rivera met them in the lobby, his tie loose and his expression weary. "You two again," he said, almost amused. "What now?" Ellie handed him the recorder and USB. "Jake left this. Proof Margaret stole from his trust. She's been lying about everything." Rivera listened to the recording, his jaw tightening as Jake's voice laid out the accusations. He skimmed the documents, then plugged the USB into his laptop, nodding as files loaded. "This is solid," he said. "Fraud's a felony. Could be years behind bars if it holds up." "She called me," Ellie added. "Knew we'd been to the bank. She's not backing down." Rivera frowned. "She's bold, I'll give her that. I'll get a warrant for her financials, see if we can match this. Sit tight, don't confront her." But sitting tight wasn't an option. An hour later, as Ellie and Lila grabbed coffee at a diner nearby, the news hit literally. A TV above the counter blared a local station, Margaret's face filling the screen. She stood outside her mansion, cameras flashing, her voice trembling with rehearsed grief. "My daughter-in-law's lost her mind since my son's death," she said, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "She's stolen from us, threatened me, I'm terrified. I filed for a restraining order to protect myself." Ellie's coffee cup hit the table, splashing over the rim. "She's flipping it," she said, incredulous. "Making me the villain." Lila cursed under her breath. "Smart move. Public sympathy's her shield. She's betting the cops won't touch her with this sob story." Ellie's phone buzzed again, Rivera. "Saw the news," he said when she picked up. "She's lawyered up, claiming you planted that evidence. We've got her gardener in custody, though he's cracking. Says she paid him to lie. Then arrest her." Ellie snapped, louder than she meant. "Working on it," Rivera said. "Need to the eyes. Judge is reviewing the warrant now. Stay low, okay?" But staying low wasn't in the cards. As they left the diner, a black SUV screeched into the lot, blocking Lila's truck. Two men in dark jackets stepped out, one flashing a badge, private security, not cops. "Eleanor Harper," the taller one said. "You're coming with us." Lila stepped forward, hand on her hip where her concealed carry hid. "Like hell she is. Back off." The man smirked. "Mrs. Langston's orders. She's got a court order. Says you're a danger to her." Ellie's blood ran cold. "That's a lie. Call the police, now." The second man lunged, grabbing her arm. Lila moved faster, shoving him back with a force that sent him stumbling. "Touch her again, and you're eating pavement," she growled. Tires squealed. Rivera's unmarked sedan roared in, lights flashing. The men froze as he stepped out, gun drawn. "Step away," he barked. "You're interfering with an investigation." The taller one raised his hands, retreating. "Just doing our job, detective." "Your job's done," Rivera said, holstering his weapon as they peeled out. He turned to Ellie. "You okay?" She nodded, shaky. "She's not stopping." "She will," Rivera said, his voice hard. "Warrant's through. We're picking her up tonight." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky a bruised purple as Ellie and Lila waited in Rivera's cramped office at the station. The air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Ellie sat on a metal chair, her knee bouncing, while Lila leaned against the wall, scrolling through her phone for updates. Rivera had left an hour ago to execute the warrant, promising to call when Margaret was in custody. "She's going down tonight," Lila said, breaking the silence. "With Jake's evidence and the gardener spilling, she's got no moves left." Ellie nodded, but her stomach churned. Margaret's desperation made her unpredictable, like a cornered animal, all teeth and claws. The private security stunt at the diner proved that. "I just want it over," she said, rubbing her temples. "I want Jake back, but since I can't have that, I'll settle for her behind bars." Lila's phone buzzed, and she grinned. "Rivera. They've got her, cuffed and in the car. Caught her trying to shred documents at the mansion." Relief washed over Ellie, sharp and sudden. "It's really happening?" "Yep," Lila said, pocketing the phone. "He's bringing her here for booking. We can watch from the observation room if you want." Ellie hesitated, then nodded. She needed to see it. Margaret's fall, the end of this nightmare. They followed a uniformed officer down a fluorescent-lit hall to a small room with a one-way mirror. Through the glass, the interrogation room was bare, gray walls, a metal table, 2 chairs. Minutes later, the door swung open, and Rivera ushered Margaret in. Her silver hair was disheveled, her navy blazer wrinkled, but her chin stayed high, defiance etched into every line of her face. A uniformed officer uncuffed her, and she sat, folding her hands like she was at a board meeting, not a police station. Rivera took the opposite chair, dropping a file on the table. "Margaret Langston, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and evidence tampering. We've got your gardener's statement, bank records, and your son's recordings. Want to explain?" Margaret's lips curled into a thin smile. "My son was trouble, detective. He fabricated those lies to spite me. As for the gardener, he's a criminal, hardly credible." Rivera leaned forward. "We've got digital timestamps, wire transfers matching your accounts, and your voice on tape admitting to forging your husband's signature. Try again." Her smile faltered, but she straightened. "My lawyer will shred this." You've got nothing but a grieving widow's vendetta. Ellie clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. Lila muttered, she's delusional. Before Rivera could respond, the door burst open, and a man stormed in, tall, wiry, with graying hair and a weathered face. His coat was patched at the elbows, his eyes wild. "Margaret," he barked, voice rough as gravel. "You thought you could bury me too?" Rivera stood, hand on his holster. "Who the hell are you?" "Thomas Langston," the man said, glaring at Margaret. "Her brother. And I've got a story you'll want to hear." Margaret's composure cracked, her face paling. "Thomas, get out. You're not welcome here." "Shut it," he snapped, turning to Rivera. "She didn't just steal from Jake. She killed him." Ellie's breath stopped. The room tilted, Lila's hand gripping her shoulder, the only thing keeping her upright. "What?" she whispered. Rivera waved off the officer, reaching for Thomas. "Explain. Now." Thomas paced, his hands shaking. "I've been out of the picture, estranged, thanks to her. But Jake reached out a month before he died. Said he'd cut her off, found out she'd drained our dad's trust. He was gonna turn her in. Had proof, like you've got. Then his car crashes. Bullshit. She tampered with it." Margaret slammed her hands on the table. "That's a lie. He's a drunk, a liar, always has been." Rivera's eyes narrowed. "Keep talking, Thomas." "She's got a mechanic," Thomas said. "Guy named Vince. Works off the books. Jake told me he saw him at the mansion once, fixing her car. I bet my life she paid him to mess with Jake's brakes. Check the wreckage. Bet you'll find it." Ellie's knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, the world narrowing to a pinprick. Jake's accident. Wet roads, they'd set a skid into a tree. She'd never questioned it, too drowned in grief. But now, Rivera glanced at the mirror, knowing Ellie was behind it. "We'll pull the crash report, get the car from impound. If there's tampering, we'll find it." Margaret laughed, shrill and unhinged. "You're grasping at straws. Thomas hates me, always has. He's making this up." "Then you won't mind us looking," Rivera said, standing. "You're staying put." He nodded to the officer, who cuffed her again, dragging her out as she spat curses. Thomas lingered, his gaze shifting to the mirror. "Ellie, if you're there, I'm sorry. I should have come sooner." The officer let him out, leaving Ellie and Lila in stunned silence. Lila spoke first. "You believe him?" Ellie's voice was a thread. "I don't know. But if it's true, we'll prove it," Lila said, fierce. "Let's get to Rivera." They found him in the hall, barking orders into his radio. "Crash report's on its way," he said, spotting them. "Impound's pulling the car tonight. Thomas is a wild card, but I'll hear him out." Ellie nodded, numb. "If she killed Jake, I want her to rot." Rivera's jaw tightened. "If she did, she will. Go home, rest. I'll call when we've got something." But rest was impossible. Back at the house, Ellie sat on the couch, Jake's journal open in her lap. Lila brewed tea, the kettle's whistle piercing the quiet. "You think Thomas is legit?" Lila asked, handing her a mug. "He sounded sure," Ellie said, staring at the pages. "And Jake wrote about a fight with her, March 15th. Said she showed up here, yelling. What if she planned it then?" Lila sat beside her. "We'll know soon. Rivera's good, he'll dig." The phone rang, shattering the moment. Rivera again. Ellie answered, her heart in her throat. "Yeah. Crash report's in," he said, his voice grim. "Brake lines were cut. Clean, deliberate. We're testing for prints. Thomas might have just handed us a murder charge." Ellie dropped the phone, tears spilling. Murder. Not an accident. Margaret hadn't just stolen Jake's money, she'd stolen his life. The house was suffocatingly quiet after Rivera's call, the weight of his words. Brake lines cut, deliberate, settling like damp rot in Ellie's chest. She sat on the couch, Jake's journal still open, its pages a lifeline to the man she'd lost. Lila hovered nearby, her usual sharpness dulled by the gravity of it all. The tea she'd made sat cold on the coffee table, steam long gone. "Murder," Ellie said finally, the word tasting foreign and bitter. She didn't just want his money. She wanted him gone. Lila sank beside her, running a hand through her hair. "She's a monster, Elle. But we've got her now. Rivera's on it, and Thomas just lit the match." Ellie's gaze drifted to the journal. "Thomas. He knew something was off. Why didn't he warn Jake sooner?" "Good question," Lila said, her tone hardening. "Guy shows up out of nowhere, drops a bomb like that. We need to talk to him." Ellie nodded, resolve cutting through her shock. "Tomorrow, after Rivera updates us. I want the whole story." Sleep came in fits, fragmented by nightmares of screeching tires and Margaret's cold smile. By morning, Ellie was hollow-eyed but determined, dressed in jeans and a sweater as she and Lila drove back to the station. Rivera met them in the lobby, his face etched with fatigue, a styrofoam cup in hand. "Long night," he said, ushering them into his office. "Cars at the lab. Techs found tool marks on the brake lines, no prints yet. We're tracing the mechanic Thomas mentioned, Vince Russo. Got a record, works cash jobs. If Margaret hired him, we'll tie it back." Ellie crossed her arms, steadying herself. "And Thomas, Where's he at? Gave a full statement, Rivera said, flipping open a notepad. Claims he and Margaret fell out years ago. Over money, what else? Says Jake called him a month before the crash. Scared she'd do something drastic. Thomas didn't take it seriously till he saw the news about the will. Why'd he wait? Ellie asked, her voice sharp. If he suspected her, why not come forward? Rivera shrugged. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. She's got a long reach. He's sticking around. Motel on Route 9. Said he'd talk to you if you want. I do, Ellie said, her jaw tight. He owes me that. Rivera nodded. Just keep it civil. We're building a case. Don't give her lawyer anything to twist. They found Thomas at the Seaside Motel, a rundown strip of rooms facing the highway. He answered the door in a faded flannel shirt, stubble shadowing his jaw, a cigarette dangling from his lips. His eyes, hazel like Jake's, met Ellie's, and she felt a pang she couldn't name. Ellie, he said, stepping aside. Come in. You too, he added, nodding at Lila. The room smelled of smoke and cheap air freshener, a duffel bag slumped in the corner. Ellie stayed standing, arms crossed. You told Rivera she killed Jake. How do you know? Thomas exhaled a plume of smoke, sinking into a chair. Didn't know, suspected. Jake called me. Middle of the night, voice all shook up. Said he'd confronted her about the trust. Threatened to go to the cops. She told him he regretted. Screaming, he said, like she lost it. Ellie's throat tightened. And you didn't think to warn him? Thomas looked away, ash falling to the carpet. I should've. But me and Jake, we weren't close. Margaret poisoned that years ago. Turned him against me after Dad died. Said I was a leech. Got me cut out of the will. When he reached out, I thought he was just venting. Then he's dead, and it hit me. Lila leaned against the wall, eyes narrow. Convenient timing, showing up now. What's your angle? No angle, Thomas said, stubbing out the cigarette. Guilt's a hell of a motivator. I owed you this much. Ellie studied him, searching for lies in the lines of his face. He looked worn, broken in a way Margaret never would. The mechanic, Vince. You're sure she used him? Saw him myself once, Thomas said. Years back, fixing her Jag. Shady guy, always cash only. Jake mentioned him too. Spotted him at the mansion a week before the crash. Said it felt off. Ellie's hands clenched. If it's true, I want him found. Rivera's on it, Lila said, her tone softer now. You sticking around, Thomas? He nodded. Till she's locked up. I'm done running from her. They left the motel with more questions than answers, the weight of Thomas's words pressing down. Back at the house, Ellie's phone rang Rivera again. Got a lead, he said, voice clipped. Vince Russo's shop, off the grid, but we tracked a payment from Margaret's account 3 days before the crash. Bringing him in now. Ellie's pulse raced. She paid him to kill Jake. Looking that way, Rivera said. He's a flight risk, history of skipping town. If he talks, we've got her dead to rights. The call ended, and Ellie related to Lila, who punched the air. This is it. El murder charge sticks, she's gone for life. But the victory felt hollow. Ellie paced to the window, staring at the rain-slicked street. She took him from me, she said, voice breaking. All this, the money, the lies, it's because she couldn't let go. Lila stepped beside her, a hand on her shoulder. She's paying for it now. Jake's getting justice. Hours later, Rivera called again. Vince cracked, he said, triumphant. Says Margaret hired him to cut the brakes. Offered 10 grand, half up front. We've got a recorded confession. She's being charged, murder one. Ellie sank onto the couch, tears spilling. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me, Rivera said. Thank your husband. He left you the tools to nail her. As night fell, Ellie sat with the journal, rereading Jake's last entry. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I love you. She traced the words, a sob catching in her throat. I love you too, she said to the empty room. And I'll finish this for you. The days after Vince's confession blurred into a haze of exhaustion and fury for Ellie. Margaret was behind bars, her bail denied pending trial, but the victory felt like ash in Ellie's mouth. Jake's death wasn't an accident. It was a calculated strike by the woman who'd raised him. The journal lay open on her kitchen table, its pages a testament to his fear and love, while the safety deposit evidence sat with Rivera, locking Margaret's fate. Yet Ellie couldn't shake the need to do more, to make Margaret's lies crumble for all to see. Lila burst through the door that morning, her energy a stark contrast to Ellie's quiet resolve. You see this, she said, tossing a newspaper onto the table. The headline screamed, Grieving mother accuses widow of fraud, claims innocence in son's death. Below it, a photo of Margaret in handcuffs, her expression mournful, captioned with a quote. My daughter-in-law framed me to steal our family's legacy. She's still at it, Ellie said, her voice tight. Even now. Her lawyer's spinning it, Lila said, pacing. Playing the victim card. Says you planted the evidence, coerced Vince. Public's eating it up. Half the comments online call you a black widow. Ellie's hands clenched. She killed Jake, and they're buying her tears. Not for long, Lila said, grinning fiercely. We've got the recordings, the bank records, Vince's confession. Let's go public, blow her story apart. Ellie hesitated, the weight of exposure daunting. But then she thought of Jake, his voice on that recorder, pleading for her to fight. Okay, she said. How? Press conference, Lila said. I know a guy at the local station, owes me a favor. We air it all unedited. Margaret's done. By noon, they stood outside the police station, a small crowd of reporters, buzzing under the gray sky. Rivera had approved, reluctantly, warning them to stick to facts. Ellie wore Jake's leather jacket, its familiar weight grounding her as cameras flashed. Lila handed her a mic, and she stepped forward, heart pounding. My name is Ellie Harper, she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. My husband, Jake, died 3 weeks ago, not in an accident, but because his mother, Margaret Langston, had his brakes cut. She's accused me of stealing, framed me with planted evidence, and lied to you all. But Jake left proof. She held up the recorder, pressing play. His voice echoed. She forged Dad's signature, millions gone. Ellie, use this if she comes after you. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Lila distributed printed bank records. Margaret's fraud laid bare. Vince Russo confessed. Ellie continued. She paid him to kill Jake. This isn't grief, it's greed and murder. The questions came fast, reporters shouting over each other. Ellie answered what she could, Lila filling gaps with sharp precision. By evening, the story was everywhere. TV, online, drowning Margaret's sob story in cold, hard evidence. Rivera called later, gruff but impressed. You stirred the hornet's nest. Her lawyer scrambling, trial set for next month. Stay sharp. Ellie felt lighter, but the relief was short-lived. That night, a brick crashed through her living room window, glass shattering across the hardwood. A note was taped to it, scrawled in block letters, you'll pay. Lila grabbed her gun from her bag, scanning the dark street, but the culprit was gone. She's locked up, Ellie said, her voice shaking as she swept up the shards. Who's doing this? Her reach, Lila said, holstering the weapon. Friends, hired hands, someone still loyal. We need to end this for good. The next day, Thomas showed up at her door, his face gaunt but determined. Heard about the brick, he said, stepping inside. She's got people, old cronies from Dad's business. They'll keep coming unless you hit her where it hurts. Where's that? Ellie asked, wary but curious. Her pride, Thomas said. She's got a safe in the mansion, hidden behind a painting in her study. I saw it once years ago. Bet it's got dirt she doesn't want out. Stuff even Jake didn't know. Lila's eyes lit up. We get in, we get leverage. Rivera could use it to seal the case. It's breaking and entering, Ellie said hesitant. Not if I've got a key, Thomas said, pulling a tarnished brass one from his pocket. She never changed the locks after I left. Hated admitting I existed. They drove to the mansion under cover of dusk, its sprawling silhouette eerie in the fog. Thomas unlocked the side door, and they slipped inside, the air thick with dust and old money. In the study, a gaudy portrait of Margaret loomed over the desk. Lila shoved it aside, revealing a wall safe. Combo, she asked. Thomas frowned. Try her birthday, October 15th, 63. Ellie spun the dial, and it clicked open. Inside were ledgers, photos, and a sealed envelope marked confidential. She tore it open, a contract with a signature she didn't recognize, promising Margaret $500,000 to resolve family disputes permanently. Dated a week before Jake's death. She hired someone else too, Ellie whispered, dread coiling. Vince was just the tool. Lila snapped photos of everything. This ties her to a conspiracy, multiple players. She's cooked. But as they turned to leave, headlights swept the driveway. A car door slammed, and heavy footsteps approached. Hide, Thomas hissed, shoving the safe shut. They ducked behind the desk as the door creaked open. A man entered, broad, scarred, a gun in his hand. Come out, Harper, he growled. Boss wants a word before trial. Ellie's heart hammered. Lila whispered, stay down, then lunged, tackling him. The gun skidded across the floor as they grappled. Thomas grabbed a lamp, smashing it over the man's head. He crumpled, out cold. Call Rivera, Lila panted, binding his wrists with a cord. Ellie dialed, her voice shaking as she relayed the break-in. Sirens wailed within minutes, and Rivera stormed in, cuffing the thug. Her last play, he said, bagging the contract. This nails her coffin shut. Back home, Ellie collapsed, the fight draining out of her. Margaret's empire was dust, her lies exposed, her hitman caught, her trial a formality. Jake's justice was close, but the cost weighed heavy. The morning after the mansion break-in, Ellie woke to sunlight streaming through her cracked living room window, the boarded-up hole a stark reminder of Margaret's reach. Her hands still shook from the fight, the scarred thug's gun, Lila's tackle, Thomas's lamp swing replaying in her mind. Rivera had hauled the man off, the contract from the safe now evidence of Margaret's wider net. But Ellie felt no triumph, only a gnawing need for closure. Lila was already up, brewing coffee in the kitchen, her knuckles bruised but her grin intact. Rivera called, she said, sliding a mug to Ellie. Thug's name is Carl Dyson, ex-con, tied to Margaret's old business cronies. He's clamming up, but that contract's gold. Trials in 3 days, she's toast. Ellie nodded, sipping the bitter brew. Thomas knew about the safe. He's holding more than he's let on. Time to squeeze him, Lila said, grabbing her keys. Let's go. They found Thomas at the seaside motel, smoking on the stoop, his duffel packed like he might bolt. He stepped out the cigarette as they approached, his hazel eyes, Jake's eyes, wary. Figured you'd be back, he said, voice rough. What now? The safe, Ellie said, crossing her arms. You knew exactly where it was, the combo. Everything. What else aren't you telling me? Thomas sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. Sit, he said, gesturing to the rickety chairs outside his room. They did, and he lit another cigarette, the smoke curling into the damp air. Margaret and me, we were close once. Dad's business, Langston Imports, was big, shipping, warehouses, millions. She ran the books, I handled the docs. When he died, she turned on me, said I was skimming, got me cut out of the will. I was 25, broke and pissed. Ellie leaned forward. Jake never mentioned you. 'Cause she erased me, Thomas said, exhaling sharply. Told him I was a drunk, a thief. Half true, later, after she ruined me. I left town, bounced around, but I kept tabs. Heard she was bleeding the trust dry, Dad's legacy meant for Jake. When he called me, said she threatened him, I should have acted. Instead, I drank. Then he's dead and I'm here. Lila's eyes narrowed. You knew about Vince, the safe. Were you in on it? No. Thomas snapped, crushing the cigarette. I hated her, but I'd never hurt Jake. I saw Vince at her place years back, shady bastard, always lurking. The safe. I broke in once, after she kicked me out, looking for proof she'd screwed me. Found it, saw the combo but got caught. She let me go with a warning. Said she'd kill me if I talked. Ellie's stomach twisted. Why help now? Guilt, he said, meeting her gaze. Jake was the only good thing left in this family. You're his wife, I owe you the truth. Before Ellie could press further, her phone buzzed Rivera. Trials moved up, he said. Tomorrow. Dyson's talking. Says Margaret promised him 50 grand to tie up loose ends. That's you. We got enough, judge wants it done. The courtroom loomed the next day, a gray stone building packed with reporters and gawkers. Ellie sat in the front row, Lila and Thomas flanking her, the air thick with tension. Margaret entered in an orange jumpsuit, her silver hair dull, her face a mask of defiance. Her lawyer, a slick man in a pinstripe suit, oozed confidence, but Ellie clutched Jake's journal, its weight her anchor. The prosecution laid it out. Jake's recordings, bank records, Vince's confession, the contract from the safe. Rivera testified, voice steady, brake lines cut, payment traced to Langston. Dyson confirmed her orders to silence Mrs. Harper. The evidence piled up, unassailable. Margaret's lawyer countered, spinning a tale of a vengeful widow and a troubled son. Mrs. Harper planted this, coerced witnesses. My client's a grieving mother, targeted by greed. He called Thomas, painting him as a bitter outcast. You hated your sister, why should we trust you? Thomas stood tall, voice raw. She stole from our dad, killed my nephew. I saw her safe, her lies, I'm done protecting her. Margaret took the stand, tears glistening. I love Jake. Ellie turned him against me, fabricated this to take everything. Ellie's turn came. She faced Margaret, her voice clear. You accused me of theft, framed me, killed my husband. Jake left proof, you couldn't stand losing control. She played the recorder, his words echoing. She's dangerous when cornered. The room hushed, Margaret's mask slipping. The jury deliberated an hour. Guilty, the foreman said. Fraud, conspiracy, murder. Life without parole. Margaret's scream cut the air as bailiffs dragged her out, her eyes burning into Ellie's. You'll regret this. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Ellie slipped away with Lila and Thomas. It's over, Lila said, squeezing her shoulder. Thomas lingered. I'm leaving, got no place here. Take care, Ellie. She nodded, a fragile piece settling. Thanks for Jake. Back home. Ellie sat with the journal, rereading his last words. I love you. Tears fell, but they were lighter now. Margaret's insane moves, framing, murder, that final thug, had failed. Jake's justice was hers too. The courtroom's echo faded, but Ellie carried its weight home, Margaret's guilty verdict a stone in her chest, heavy yet final. The house felt too big without Jake, its silence a canvas for memories, his laugh in the kitchen, his boots by the door. She sat on the couch, Jake's journal in her lap, its pages worn from her touch. The fight was over, Margaret locked away for life, her lies shredded, but victory tasted bittersweet, laced with the grief she'd buried under rage. Lila crashed through the door that afternoon, a bottle of cheap wine in hand. To justice, she said, pouring 2 glasses. You did it, Elle. Jake's proud, wherever he is. Ellie clinked her glass, the wine sharp on her tongue. Feels like I'm still waiting for him to walk in. Lila softened, sitting beside her. He's gone, but you're not. What's next? Ellie stared at the journal. Jake's last words. I love you. A quiet command to live. The estate, she said. 3 million. The mansion. The cabin. I can't keep it all. It's hers, even if she's rotting in a cell. Sell it. Lila said, pragmatic. Start fresh. That cabin in Mendocino, Jake loved it. Keep that, ditch the rest. Ellie nodded, the idea taking root. The mansion was Margaret's shrine. Gaudy, cold, a monument to her greed. It held no piece of Jake, only her shadow. I'll call a realtor tomorrow. The next week, blurred with logistics. Ellie met Andrea Kessler, Jake's lawyer, to finalize the transfers. You're set, Andrea said, sliding papers across her desk. Funds are in your account. Minus taxes, still a fortune. What about the properties? Sell the mansion, Ellie said. Keep the cabin. She signed, the pen steady despite the ache in her chest. The sale moved fast. Margaret's estate hit the market, whispers of her crimes boosting interest. A tech mogul snapped it up for $4 million, the irony not lost on Ellie. Margaret's pride flipped for profit. The money felt like blood, but she funneled half into a trust for a local grief center, Jake's name on it, a quiet tribute. Thomas called as the deal closed. Heard you're unloading it, he said, his voice crackling over the line. Good. She'd hate that. Where are you? Ellie asked, picturing his weathered face. South, new start, he said. Needed to shake her ghost. You okay? Getting there, she said. Thanks, Thomas, for everything. Take care, kid, he said, and hung up a loose end tied. Rivera stopped by that evening, off-duty in jeans, a rare smile tugging his lips. Case is airtight, he said, leaning on her porch rail. Dyson's plea deal sank her deeper, conspiracy charges stacked. She's done. Ellie exhaled, the last knot loosening. And Vince? 25 to life, Rivera said. You're safe now. Safe. The word felt foreign, but she nodded. Thanks, Sam. For believing me. He shrugged. Jake's evidence did the heavy lifting. Rest easy. He left, his sedan rumbling into the dusk. The cabin called her that weekend. She drove up alone, Lila staying back to wrap a case. The Mendocino coast stretched wild and green, the air sharp with pine and salt. The cabin was small, weathered, Jake's retreat from the world, where they'd spent lazy summers fishing and laughing. She unlocked the door, the creak familiar, and stepped inside. His fishing rod still leaned in the corner, a flannel shirt draped over a chair. It smelled of him, wood smoke, cedar. Ellie lit a fire, the crackle filling the silence, and pulled a box from her car. Jake's ashes, kept too long in a sterile urn. She'd waited for the right moment, and this was it. At dusk, she walked to the cliff's edge, the ocean crashing below, and opened the urn. The wind caught the ashes, scattering them into the waves, a gray dance against the gold of sunset. I love you, she whispered, tears falling free. You fought for me, I fought for you. Rest now. Back inside. She sat by the fire, Jake's journal opened to a blank page. She took a pen, her hand trembling, and wrote, March 27th, 2025. She's gone, you're just as one. I'm keeping the cabin, letting the rest go. I miss you every day, but I'll live for us. She closed it, the ACTA seal on their story. Weeks later, the money settled, the grief center launched, Jake Harper Memorial Fund, and Ellie moved to the cabin full-time. She quit nursing, the adrenaline of Margaret's war enough for a lifetime, and started painting. Landscapes, Jake's face, the sea. The brush felt right, a quiet healing. Lila visited often, her truck rattling up the dirt road. You're an artist now, she teased one spring day, eyeing a canvas of crashing waves. Trying, Ellie said, smiling. A real one, small but growing. You sticking around? For the weekend, Lila said, dropping her bag. Then back to busting cheats and liars. You're good here. Ellie looked out the window, the ocean endless, the cabin hers. Yeah, she said. I am. Margaret's insane move, accusing, framing, murdering, had shattered Ellie's world, but she'd rebuild it, piece by jagged piece. The 3 million sat in a bank, mostly untouched. The cabin and Jake's memory were wealth enough. She'd lost him, but not his love, not his fight. And in the quiet, she found herself again.